Welcome to Exit Philosophy. He's Mal Ramanan. I'm Rich Griffin, and we're here with some news that happened this afternoon. And we're recording on Thursday. Max Scherzer signed with the Blue Jays or has agreed to terms pending a physical, which when you're
Point.
40 years old and playing baseball isn't always a given. But yeah, so 15, John Heyman reports 15.5 million 1 year. And yeah, we'll talk about that and then we'll get into the full podcast. But
Maybe he asked for
first, what's your
maybe he
first
asked for
impression on that?
The Jeff Hoffman physical he's going to get. So he's good.
Yeah, well, where can we sign where we know he's going to pass the physical? Let's
Let's
go with the Jays.
let's go to Toronto. My thoughts. My thoughts are, hey, I'll tip my hat for them spending beyond what I expected to at this stage. So I'll give them credit for making the effort, as you say. I'm not overly thrilled with the signing at that cost. 15.5. I kind of feel like you could get a fourth, fifth starter. You know, there's guys we've talked about, Heaney, Quantrill, Quintana's out there, and then maybe use those funds elsewhere. Catcher, bullpen, things like that. Uh, can he stay healthy? He's 40 years old. He certainly didn't do that last year. Um, so I think there's a lot of question marks. And he's Max Scherzer in name, but as you've mentioned and noted during the workout before, he's down to 92 with the fastball. So, obviously the guy knows how to pitch. So we'll give him that, and I'll give him credit for obviously the spend. But I just again feel like they're in the position they are because not because of the total dollars they've spent, but how they've spent it. This kind of feels like a little bit of a desperation lob, you know what I mean? And then perhaps it's also a move to say, hey, um, don't pay attention to all the other stuff we didn't manage to get done this year. Here's a little, here we're throwing this to you and enjoy this. It's a big name from the past and maybe a little distraction on what didn't take place earlier in the off season. But at the end of the day, they have done something, and let's see how it plays out. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Max Scherzer has had a great career. There's no doubt about it. 40 years old. But since 2019, and we'll forgive him for 2020 because that was the COVID year,
Yeah,
and he had
yeah,
12 starts that year, which is the same as everyone else.
right.
But in the 6 years since and including 2019, he's made 22 starts per year average, 57 and 30, 2.99 ERA. But as you said, he had that public workout, and a lot of teams were there, including the Jays, obviously. But he was throwing 92.5, and that's not the Max Scherzer who was at the top of the rotation when he was in Washington, Detroit. So that's a number four starter, which is what they're looking for. And in my opinion, they have got themselves a nice headline to try and sell tickets as spring training is approaching. Now they got Santander. Now they've got Max Scherzer, a recognizable name, and everybody, all the naysayers among the fan base have been saying they can't sign anybody. You know, this front office group is a failure. They can't sign. They lose out on everybody that people want.
Right.
But then they started to turn that around with the signing of Santander. Started to turn it around with the signing of Jeff Hoffman. But of course, the medical issue with Hoffman sort of had people
Right.
guffawing that
Such as myself.
this is the Blue Jays as we know it.
Right.
But in terms of Scherzer, if he's giving you 22 starts and say 23, 24, that's fourth starter material right there. They might be better off, and we can discuss next week or the week after the possibility of a six-man rotation because this is an aging group of starters, including Scherzer, that might benefit from that extra day of rest. And that might mean that number six starter could be Yariel Rodriguez, who can also be a swingman. So, well, that's a topic for future discussion. In terms of the ticket buying Blue Jays fan base, the casual fan who hasn't decided whether to buy tickets or had a partial package of tickets and was going, I'm not going to support these guys, even in this great stadium for fans, they're not going to put a product on the field. So, in my opinion, it's a lot of money to spend for a fourth starter for 1 year, but it's a time of it shows that this team is not going to sit by and say we're a 74 win team, we're rebuilding. Clearly it's a shot fired that they want to win right now, whether they can or not, whether Scherzer is the correct answer or not. They did not go out and sign some of the other names that we had spoken about, including Cal Quantrill, uh, Andrew Heaney. There's a list of them. Quintana,
Yeah, Turnbull. Yeah, yeah.
Turnbull, who could have fit into that fourth starter role. Kyle Gibson. But if he's healthy and they're contending, then who are we to argue with what they've done? But the thing that they can do, because this puts them well over the into the luxury tax threshold. They could turn around if they're not doing well at the All-Star break and or at the trade deadline and make some moves to try and get back under the threshold like they did last year. But I don't know what to think. We're going to have to see what kind of shape he shows up in. The other thing is that by the time he falters, by the time his arm starts to give out, by the time he hits the IL, maybe Jake Bloss will have developed enough. Maybe Alek Manoah will be on the road back in August. And, maybe Adam Mako will be a left-hander that can come join the rotation. But it's very questionable, very dicey, but it's a move that they almost had to make to show their fans that they are really trying.
I do understand that from the PR side of it too. Like you say, we've created a very interesting narrative and an interesting story heading into the spring training, heading into the start of the season. And I think that's kind of important. Like I said, but it does feel a little desperate. And I think there's a high probability, or definitely higher, that he gives you 10 starts for 15.5 million, and it doesn't go so well. But, but again, tip of the cap, they've done something, and perhaps it works out. And it's definitely, a shout out to everybody else that they're not just going to do nothing and go into camp with what they have. So I give them credit there. I just question the baseball sense in all this.
Well, one thing that we know is that when the ball is put in play, there's not very many other teams that can back Max Scherzer up defensively like
Yep.
this group with the infield, with the addition of Andres Jimenez, and the outfield group that they put out there. So maybe he's looking at that. Maybe he doesn't care how many runs they score because Mark and Ross don't seem to care. But in terms of a landing spot for 1 year, and who knows? He's not going to be looking for another contract beyond
Yeah.
this year. Maybe another 1 year deal if he does well and stays
Right.
healthy.
Right.
But yeah, God bless him.
Yeah.
They're at
It's
least putting in an effort to bring some names in and to sort of overcome the negativity of the first
yeah.
months of the off
And
season.
it's going to give everybody something to talk about for sure. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, we will continue on with our regular scheduled program,
Yeah.
and
Let's do it.
and good luck to Max and good luck to the Jays, and we'll continue here with the discussion of the rest of baseball and other topics that we have outlined. And we are 2 weeks away from the Super Bowl, so we had made our NFL picks last Sunday. I know you're a big
Yeah.
NFL fan and a big Buffalo Bills fan. So, like, what was your impression of both championship games, especially the Bills game?
I got screwed.
Yeah, typical Buffalo Bills fan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think there's much to have an impression on the Skins and Eagles. I think the Eagles asserted their will and dominated the game and more than we thought. Clearly, thought the Commanders would be able to hang in there. But as far as the Bills, I think I jinxed it by taking them on, with the points. So, um, you know, I, again, it comes down to the defense not being able to the defensive line mostly. Every year when they bow out, it's because they get nothing done and they get run over in the biggest of games by a powerful or better. I don't know whether it's just a game plan, but they're just not big and strong enough on the defensive line. It's been that way for a while. McDermott's a great defensive coordinator. He can do a lot with less, but when you get to the pinnacle or the nitty-gritty of the top teams, you can't do a lot with less anymore. You find your ceiling, and guys like Russo and Oliver, and they just, they kind of never had that top dog on the defensive line that can change a game. So it really, you get pushed around in big moments, and it's hard for Superman Josh Allen to overcome it every time. So he almost did. He
Yeah, I
almost did.
mean, to me, it was 1 point down, 3.5 minutes to go, and the ball is in Josh Allen's hands. And didn't they fail like twice on the short yardage, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and that turned
Yeah, they
the
did.
ball?
And to be honest with you, I believe they got the first down. I think you can see that. However, the fact remains you can get it by more than barely getting there. Like that play has worked. The tush push, the quarterback sneak has worked all year for them. And obviously Kansas City did something special to thwart that, and they weren't getting those plays so easily. So
Yeah,
I still believe he got it, but I mean,
I
you
think
can't
the
leave room
key.
for error like that. You know what I mean?
I think the key to stopping that play really is to have the first guy go down low and get beyond the offensive line and grab the guy's ankles and
Yeah. So
legs,
there's no
and then
push.
the rest of them push the guy back. And to me, like if you only have one short yardage play, like the Eagles have the tush push, and these guys have Josh Allen just slightly veering to the left, and everybody knows that. Why not come up with another play in a big moment like that? Like third, especially 3rd down. If you know you're going to do that play on 4th down, then on 3rd down, how about maybe going outside or a little dump pass into the flat with him sprinting out, giving him an option, but just being stuck on that one play. That's
Well,
not,
it works so well all year. I mean, that's what the Chiefs do. They'll get Mahomes out, and I mean, he had so much room to run. I mean, there was never a threat. He just got those first downs easily, right? But they've run it so effectively all year. I get why yeah, that's your go-to. It's been your best play. Just the Chiefs did a fantastic job. And like I said, I still think they got the first down, but I mean, what are you going to do?
yeah.
I mean, that's life,
So
and
just
you
to
move on.
summarize, our NFL picks, we're recording Thursday morning, and we're gonna hold off on our Super Bowl preview until next week.
Much anticipated.
But Mal was on a heater and then went
Yeah.
0-2 because he took the
Yep.
Bills, and we both took the Commanders to at least cover the 6, but that didn't happen. The first play is a 62-yard run from scrimmage by Saquon, and you go, uh-oh. The only thing we got going for us now is that their defense will get really tired because they're on the field for all this
Right,
time.
right, right, right,
But
right,
that
right.
didn't happen either. So Mal was 0-2 and is 25-23 for the season, which is still pretty good. Griff
Uh,
was 1-1 and 28-20 for the season, which is very
Really
good.
good. Very good.
So we'll come at you next week with the once we see who's panicky at the media day and who acts
Yeah,
like idiots
that's
in New
right.
Orleans. And yeah, we can that's always a
Very
fact.
important handicapping. That's right.
Let's see now. We got a question of your Niagara college season,
Yeah.
May to August. Is that what it is?
Well, it's basically June and July. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you start in June. Yeah, yeah.
So
Slightly into
what's
August
an
for sure.
update on that? We're still waiting for a team name, but apparently that's going to be unveiled at a press conference. But so
Yeah,
I
well,
won't
we'll
press you
unveil
on
it
that.
shortly. Like I said, I don't know if there's much to announce at this stage. There will be soon. I got the dead red hat on here, obviously. We
I love
have
that
we have
focus.
signed two players, which we will announce soon as well, which is very exciting for us. So we're starting to slowly put things together. A couple sponsors that were close to putting pen to paper that I mean have committed. So that's all where all those little things that you've just got to finalize before you go out and mention to the public what they are. So it's kind of business as usual right now. So just all the little things are being done, and just you continue to talk to sponsors, talk to players, and things along those lines. So it's
But
coming along. We'll have a lot to announce soon.
I love the fact that you've got a really top-notch ballpark where the Stompers used to play in St.
Yeah.
Catharines. That's a good start for any project like what you're putting together.
Oh, it's going to be a fun spot, and especially as we move forward through the years, we've got some things planned that are going to even, enhance the experience at the ballpark. So we're looking forward to, being the place to go for college ball, and it's just, there isn't really anywhere to go for it other than me. So I think people are going to really enjoy that experience and seeing some really top Canadian talent. So
Yeah.
a lot to announce and a lot to announce soon. So stay tuned, as they say, and watch the podcast.
Yeah, it's a big area to draw from too, the Niagara region all the way down to Lake Erie and up through the Golden Horseshoe. It's a pretty good area.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and certainly the population keeps growing, which is one of the reasons why we're down there as well, obviously. So a lot of people that can attend and a lot of players to choose from too. So that's kind of exciting for us.
Maybe I made a mistake. Is it still Lake Erie or has the president changed the name yet?
That's right. We'll see how we have to change our approach there too. Yeah, that's coming, I'm sure. The Gulf of
Uh,
America. Yeah.
the Let's get into the baseball stuff now. The
Yeah.
Dodgers dynasty.
Yeah.
They're separating
Well, what
themselves from the
dynasty?
pack.
Yeah.
Well, the dynasty 1 year, if that makes a dynasty, then there's like 150 dynasties that have happened in baseball.
Yeah.
Um, But that leads to the question of baseball having so few repeat winners despite no salary cap, and the Dodgers saying to hell with a luxury tax. We're signing everybody. They got like three legit closers right now. They got a seven-man all-star rotation. They got all sorts of stuff going for them. A lineup that 1 to 9 is pretty difficult to handle. Does that mean they're going to win 116 games?
It does not mean that at all. Does it mean they're more likely to? Yes. The team with the better players usually wins more games. Um, but is that bad for baseball? I don't think so. I mean, you know, it's not like they have exclusive rights to any free agent. They've done a wonderful job in accruing these players, but it's not like it's their God-given right to sign them all. Everybody else can make their pitch as well. So. Um, you know, there is no guarantee they're going to win 116 games. You're right. But clearly they're positioned as the most talented team in baseball, I would say right now. So they're more likely to win more games. They've got better depth and a better chance to do so, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And the one thing I think I don't like about North American sports is I don't want all my teams winning between 75 and 85 games. No, but that's what other sports are after, right? They're
Yeah, that's
after
why
that.
the NFL, if you have a good season, then you end up playing other good teams. And if you have a bad season, you end up playing other shitty teams.
And the more better players you have, the less you can afford to keep them, and you got to throw them back into the pool. Like that, to me, we've been brainwashed or programmed to think that's good. I understand competitive balance, but you can have competitive balance other ways and through competition. Through competition, it's not doesn't have to be socialized. I just say all these billionaire owners love capitalism, and then sports they're suddenly socialists. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's a great point. But to me, that I mean, and I'm on the same side of the fence as you in terms of this is not a bad thing for baseball. Um, it's not like the NBA where if you put three great players out there and a couple of support players, you can dominate. You know that you're going to
Correct.
win. It's just by how much
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's five guys on the court that can make opponents look like the Washington Generals. But in baseball, and that's the thing I've always loved, and I preach this to my players when I was coaching, and in the future when I'm probably coaching my grandsons,
Yeah.
is that it's a series of one-on-one battles. It doesn't matter how much money is sitting on the Dodgers bench in the batter's box is that one guy that you got to get out, and you got a 60% chance if you go on base percentage. If you go on base, you got a 60% chance of winning that battle. So you win 27 battles, score more runs than they can manufacture in the guys that succeed against you, then you're going to win the game. And it's not like you're facing a 26-man roster of multimillionaires all at once. It's a one-on-one battle, and you got as good a chance with your talent of getting that guy out as anyone.
And this is what I like about baseball, and this is why I want baseball to understand what it is. Sell that. That's a better story, Griff. It's better to have the big evil, empire to fight against, you know what I mean, than it is that everybody's vanilla and everybody's the same. And what's a better storyline? How many teams now are going to, let's get the Dodgers. Let's get the big bad boys and let's beat them. You know what I mean? To me, that's better for sport. I've always believed that. Do you want some level of parity or some avenue for teams to get better? Of course, I think they have that. I'm just tired of this idea with the amount of money in the game that there's small market, large market, and teams can't compete. What are the Pirates doing with all the money the Dodgers keep giving them from going over the tax? Are they spending it? The answer is no. That's where the question should be asked.
Do you think that people would still be talking about David and Goliath if David had an AK-47 going into battle? No. The story is a guy with a little pebble and a slingshot, and he
Hair of
beats
the tortoise, man. You know what I mean?
giants. And
Right.
that is the story of baseball. People will be watching the division series, the league championship series, hoping to see the Dodgers unseeded, beat by an underdog. And then when they get to the World Series, the audience will be huge if in fact they do manage to get there, but that's not guaranteed. So I think it's brilliant for baseball. And the
This is
Mets,
where baseball needs to sink into that, though, and they don't. So I think they're always trying to find ways to be other sports instead of being themselves. Just get really into your own product that you don't have a salary cap and you have exactly those stories and encourage teams to compete.
so
Compete, go get them.
So Steve Cohen and the Mets are the closest thing to sort of stepping into that same territory as the Dodgers are. Uh,
Yep.
but in your mind, what happened to other teams that were big boys? Like the Yankees and Phillies are just behind the Mets in terms of being willing to spend and wanting to play in that same sandbox as the Dodgers. But what about the Red Sox, the Giants, the Cubs, the Braves? They used to be all in that same grouping, but they're
Yeah,
not now. What do
they're
you think?
not. Well, I think a lot of times this is a problem. You get teams that are concerned more with profit than they are competition. You know what I mean? And that's why historically, even you look at the NFL, and that's changing too. You weren't allowed to own a team. Corporations weren't allowed to own teams, and these things are becoming corporations now, who are more concerned about how much money is being made rather than the be all end all of what the sport is about. Look at the Red Sox. I mean, they've just went cheap, and there's a reason for it. They're not maximizing the comp or what they can do. These are about bottom lines, and sometimes, you know, good enough is good enough. And I think that's where guys like Cohen aren't well received into the baseball world because they blow that thing away. And now it forces the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Cubs, they look like the cheap owners that they actually might be it forces them to do something in time. It's going to force their hand because it exposes, the fact that they're not maximizing or not leaving not no stone unturned to win, and then eventually your customer base sees that. I mean, that's been the case in Boston for sure. There's no excuse for where they've been at the last 10 years, or I don't know if it's that long, but you know what I mean? There's no excuse for that.
The move from individual owners like Steve Cohen to corporate owners like Rogers has been a long time coming. And I remember with the Expos when I was at the winter meetings in 1989, and Charles Bronfman was down there, and he didn't usually go to winter meetings, but this one he went to because he was going to address ownership and say he was getting out of the game.
Right.
And he ended up selling to a consortium led by Claude Brochu, and the franchise was never the same again because Bronfman was such a solid individual owner from 1968 when he saved the franchise to start the
Right.
69 season until 89 when he decided to leave because all his friends were owners, but they were individual owners. And he saw the trend towards corporate ownership. And the reason it was becoming corporate was because the amount of money required to keep a roster going, to keep a team going, was becoming prohibitive for an
Right.
individual. But it wasn't for him. He could have kept providing that. I remember he had a spring training party at his uh, condo, which was like 3 condos with the walls knocked down in Palm Beach. It was probably near Mar-a-Lago. I don't remember at the time, but he invited everyone in the organization, all the minor leaguers, all the minor league coach, sorry, not the players though, all the minor league coaches, all the people in the front office to his party. And Bart Giamatti was there, who was National League president at the time.
Yep.
And after a couple of pops of his own product, Seagram's,
That's right.
Charles called for attention in the room and gave everybody a 12% raise on the spot. And everybody going, oh, is this just the booze talking? And then
Yes.
the next paycheck that they got, there was a 12% raise on it. And like, that's what individual ownership can do that corporate ownership can't do, is engender loyalty.
How's that for morale, right?
Yeah, right.
No, seriously, you're right. And it becomes cold and antiseptic. It's like, what if the Cowboys were owned by a Fenway group, faceless group, you know what I mean? How about those storylines and how about that? I mean, it just changes everything. It changes the interest in the product and it's not the same and that's why those teams are not competing the same way. Let's hope they're forced to.
I would say that individual ownership of the Blue Jays would right now have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. under contract.
Correct?
And they would have done it 2 years ago when it was cheaper. Right now, you're paying premium dollars. Is he the third best player? Is Vlad Guerrero Jr. the third best player in Major League Baseball? No. Is
Right.
he going to have the third highest contract? Yes.
Right.
Timing is everything, and screwing up the process like the Jays have done over the last 2 or 3 years. When he had a down year and they go, well, we don't want to sign him. Another down year, we don't want to sign him. All of a sudden, he has a breakout year, and Ohtani and Soto set the bar so much higher. Now you're stuck. Now you are in a position you don't want to be in. That he should not be the third highest paid player. Well, but circumstances force your hand if you want to keep Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Right, because the market can bear it. The market can bear the contract he's going to get. And the club can still make money. That's the
Yeah.
joke. So,
Well,
you
the
know,
real thing here is that when Forbes values the franchises in pro sports, I haven't seen one go down. You're paying
right,
the guy more money, but your value of your franchise continues to soar, to go up. I mean, the Blue Jays, or Rogers owns the Rogers Center, and they've made all those renovations, but they bought it like for $25 million back in the
right.
day, right?
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
so now the Blue Jays to-do list, now that we've gone through that, people keep talking. You talk about corporate ownership, amazingly, and how they set a budget for Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, and they're not likely to move it. But yet we still hear talk about Pete Alonso and Max Scherzer, who coincidentally both we know Scott Boras represents Alonso and uses the Blue Jays a lot of time. What's your thought on the fact that they are still talking about the Blue Jays being on the podium again? And the fact that we don't believe at Exit Philosophy that there's any budget left for that.
Correct. And I stand by that. Now, could we be proven wrong? I hope so. I hope so. That would be a distinct change in the way they operate. Obviously, we've talked about it a million times with the separate budget for the two players. Well, that doesn't exist for these guys. So it would be certainly a change in direction, despite the fact the reason I believe that they're meant, in fact, there's a lot of stuff out there that's suggesting the contract and the contract terms that have been, the Jays have offered. I don't believe any of that either. Despite the fact that they have the needs, and that's why I think they keep coming back to that. The Jays could use the players. There's no question. You need a big bat. Uh, and you need another pitcher. And that's why even stuff I've been reading about Bregman having some sort of deal done with the Jays. Well, he's the
Mhm.
guy they really need. The third baseman is the guy they need, not the first baseman. But again, when you think logically about it, where's the money coming from? They're already maxed out for the most part. They're going to have to get really, really creative on how they would do something. So I don't think it's going to happen. And I haven't seen anybody that I would consider overly credible suggesting those terms in dollars as well. I don't know about you.
I compare it to the Olympic high jump. The deal is in place, and the deal is the bar that you have to jump over. You haven't jumped over it yet, so the deal is in place, but nothing's going on. And then when you knock it off with your trail heel, you don't even finish on the podium. At least the Jays may end up on the podium, but
Now you can go get an Alonso and a Bregman and guys you actually need, but you can't get it when you've already misspent the dollars you have. They've been allocated a significant budget. You can't hand 11, $14 million to Miles Straw. You can't do that. You can't, overpay guys that, you could use money on. So it is on the organization. The one thing I really getting tired of is people acting like the Blue Jays are being used or
yeah,
this is a Canadian thing. It is not any of that. I mean, of course they're being used. If you want to throw your name into the mix, that's what agents do. Like, like if you want a player, go get them.
yeah.
You know
But
what I
so
mean? That's how
if
it works.
if Pete Alonso is not to me and to you is not the realistic answer because of the baggage that comes with him, and Scott Boras will have uh, additions in the contract that make it untenable. But and we agree that Jurickson Profar was not the answer, and he went to the Braves. What's out there that could be Bregman? I'm not a big because Bregman wants a long-term deal, and I'm not sure that that's in the best interest of the Toronto
Fair.
Blue Jays.
That's the type of player they need, though,
Yeah,
right now. But I agree that you're going to. That's a Springer contract. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's not going to end well for you if that matters to you right now. I don't know if there are a lot of answers. That's the problem.
But how about behind the plate backup catcher? We've discussed that, and they haven't. I mean, they don't need to make, but some of those legit backup catchers who can start 60 games plus are disappearing off the board. Elias
I
Diaz
get the
disappeared.
impression that Betancourt might be the guy for
Yeah.
them. Yeah, I
How about
think he is that answer.
how about
And
James McCann? That's my guy. I'd love to see him. I mean, he
100%.
got hit in the face and stayed in the game with a broken cheekbone. I love that.
And he can do a little more. You know what
Yeah,
I
he can
mean? He
do a
can
little
do,
more. Plus,
yeah.
he's a good guy to have in the clubhouse and a good guy to have working with your pitching staffs for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I mean, I think that's where they're focusing their efforts right now anyways. We're in the Adam Kloffenstein
Yeah, right.
time of off season. I think
Yeah.
that stuff's more likely than Max Scherzer. That's just how I see it. And I said, I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's a big signing out there. I just don't see it.
And when we talk about the bullpen and maybe one or definitely one, maybe two spots, I think to me they've probably got a spot reserved for Ryan Yarbrough if he doesn't get a better deal somewhere else.
Yeah, which I don't know if I like that at all, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
Whatever.
I wasn't a big fan of his when he was coming in and shutting down the Blue Jays because that's not like an indicator of what you can do against the rest of baseball. But he had a good half season with the Jays last year, which was stunning. He's only 32, I think, 32, 33. So it is a possibility. But
Yeah, I mean it's not going to cost you a
yeah.
lot. Sure. See what happens.
But if they can get another starter and put Yariel Rodriguez into that multiple inning role, then maybe do they need Ryan Yarbrough? That's the question.
Well, and I think that's those are the sneaky moves, the creative moves where you impact your bullpen and your rotation, and all of a sudden, things break for you and you're winning more games. Like I said, counting on Bowden Francis is foolish. Like you've got to come into the season like that's fool's gold, and you expect him to flame out. That has to be your approach. And if he is somewhat that version down the stretch, bonus. Like now we really got something here. So you can't approach it like he's a veteran solid, pencil him in for 25 starts. You know what I mean? You can't go into the season that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the sophomore jinx is real because people study video, they study whether it's a hitter or a pitcher, they find tendencies, they catch up with what you did differently to make yourself a success in that first time around. And that's definitely a Bowden Francis situation where they'll be studying video all winter
Yeah.
and they'll come to spring training in the regular season and we're not sure whether they will have caught up and he goes back to the Bowden Francis of before his second half last year. We'll
Yeah.
see.
His history. Right.
Yeah. Um, Bet 365 posted, and they've had it posted for a while, but we'll talk about it because there's only what is the 16 days till spring training from the time we're recording. Over under win totals for teams. Now
Okay.
they post their win totals not based on any formula for a team to say exactly how much they're going to win, but they use idiot fans who are overly enthusiastic bettors and they try and set a number where they'll get 50% of the action on each side of the number.
Well, and the
That
marketplace
being
takes
said,
care, a betting
right.
market, it takes care of
And
that number and settles it real fast.
those numbers won't be the same numbers on opening day because there'll be a lot between now and then. But these are the numbers as of today. And I'll go through the AL East, and this is Bet 365's predicted order of finish. Yankees, 93.5 wins, first place. Then you go to the Red Sox. Oh, no, the Orioles, 89.5. Red Sox, 84.5. Rays, 80.5. Blue Jays 76.5. Now, we discussed before we went on, I think that the Blue Jays 76.5, they won 74. Um, they vastly improved the bullpen that they had in the second half. Like opening day last year was a more solid bullpen than they ended with. They got rid of a bunch of guys,
Yep.
but they've vastly improved their bullpen. They added Anthony Santander. They've got a gold glove at second, and I know fans are tired of hearing the words gold glove.
But he is. He's a
But
legit gold glove. He's not
so yeah,
Vladdy gold glove. He's a real
or
gold glove.
an Ernie Clement gold glove.
Correct, correct.
But now you've got Bet 365 saying that all of those additions and the improvement in the pen is only going to add two more wins to what they're projecting. I say they're gonna blow through 76.5. What do you say?
I say the number sounds just about right, as they say. Uh, um, I think when you look at the competition, I mean, maybe you could, the Rays obviously aren't great, but I don't think you can just go, well, they won X amount last year and they've done this, this, and this.
I
I
just did
think,
that.
yeah, I know you did,
You said you
and
can't do that.
you
I
can't, you
just did.
can't. Um, so what I will agree on is it's hard for me to take the under in that number. But I feel like that's kind of where they are right now, and I think the number one thing is they have zero depth. In fact, they don't have a starting nine right now. There's a lot of eight hitters in that bottom part of the order. In fact, one of their eight hitters is probably going to be hitting leadoff. So the lineup ain't so strong right now. And while do I see a path to more victories? Possibly 100%. But that's why the number feels about right. There is no depth, and if they aren't contending, they're going to have to go the other way. And what do you do with Bo? What do you do with Vlad? What do you do with some of your pitchers? Don't forget, they're going to have to move off from them, and you may not be winning a lot of ball games in August and September.
Yeah, no,
If
that's a great point because it looked like if you were going 76.5 last season, it looked, you could be able to make it until, of course, the trade deadline came along and they just said we're not making it.
that's right,
So yeah, that could be a factor. We know that if the trade deadline arrives and they're under 500 by several games, that Vlad is in jeopardy, that Bo is in jeopardy, and
right.
some of those bullpen members also.
And your rotation guys,
Yeah,
they're going
yeah.
to be in high
Rotation.
demand. High
Bassett will be
demand.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so they're probably counting on a dismal downturn for those who are going to bet under 76 points.
well, so if you are betting it now, which I totally understand, that's when you should bet things early, you have to decide, are the Blue Jays going to be in the hunt? Because if they are, with the status of Mark and Ross, they're going to push forward, not backward. So that total might be easily surpassed if they're in the deadline. They're probably going to try to add pieces. Like that's where your forecasting is. So they're either going to be dumping guys or adding guys. I think they're a prime candidate for that. So you
Well, let's
decide.
let's go to the top of the division. Yankees at 93.5. What do you think of that prognostication?
I think that's fair. That feels like a good number. I think I'd be more inclined to bet over for a lot of the reasons I just said. I think their projection as a team would probably in that market, but you've got to think they're not going to sit still and they're going to be adding as we move forward, right? That's a pretty solid ball team. I think they've done a lot of things to improve. I'd be betting over. Somebody's going to win 100 games in that division. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if
the team the team
this
I like is
this
Baltimore.
the strength of the AL East has always been the five team depth, including the Jays, including the Rays. The Rays are going to be playing at Steinbrenner Field, um, with a roster. Any veterans there aren't going to be sure of where this franchise is heading. I think that the fact that they might struggle, and as you point out, the Jays might struggle, means that somebody in the division should win 100 games. I think you're right.
So
And
if you're asking me before we move forward with the other numbers you're going to tell me, my basic thought is when I'm thinking about how it's going to play out, I'm looking at overs on the Orioles and Yankees and unders on the Red Sox and Rays because I think there's going to be it's not a five-team division anymore. You know what
no,
I mean? There's two
it
good teams.
used to be a two-team division with the Red Sox and
The
Yankees. That
Yankees.
always was,
Yeah.
and that was during the J.P. Ricciardi and Mal era.
And there was time, yeah, and there was times that we, the Jays, made a solid effort to join that group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like right on the periphery, and those were fun times. Couldn't do it, but fun times.
So discussing the Orioles at 89.5, I'm with you. I'm saying over that total because their Achilles heel has always been the rotation. And they seem to be sorting that out. Not the biggest names. They missed out on some of the big names. They
They
lost
did,
Corbin Burns, but I think that they have the depth to sort it out at spring training, and the offense is impeccable.
and my thing with the Orioles is The offense is getting better. You've got guys with a trajectory that's heading upward, and we don't know what that ceiling is. When you got Gunner and like Jackson Holiday, who you've got nothing from yet, but we expect the big contribution there. And then guys like I don't think people understand how good a Jordan Westberg is, and players like that. Like they could go off, man. And yes, I think there is concern about ownership spending money still, because again, back to corporate ownership. I
Yeah.
mean, but you've got to think they're going to do more. So I like the overs on the Yankees and the Orioles.
I think that
Lock it.
Jackson Holiday will take off once he reaches puberty, you know?
But that's correct.
He looks like he's 12 years
And he's
old.
okay so far.
Yeah,
You
he
think
looks,
about what's to come.
if he
Holy
could face, if
smokes.
he could face the Jays every day, he'd be perfect, you know? He
Well,
always
that seems
comes
to
up
be
and
a
hits a
theme.
big bomb. Spring training was his debut and he hit a grand slam or whatever.
There's been a lot of Orioles to do that.
Yeah.
Whether Austin
Ryan
Hayes or
Mountcastle, yeah.
Mountcastle, even Santander loves it. Like
Ryan Mountcastle, I remember before my hip surgery, my right hip surgery, having to go find his first home run ball in Buffalo across the entrance ramp to the freeway, and I'm hobbling out there like a homeless guy, you know? And like I'm looking around and some guy had the ball, and
yeah.
so he got it back, but that's my Ryan Mountcastle memory is scouring the bushes for his first home
Did he
run.
want to trade you
Hoping
for
to
a
get
beef on Weck? You could have the ball.
right. Good call.
Right.
Um, yeah, so we're both I'm not so sure about the Yankees at 93.5. I think the team that wins 100 might be the Orioles.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then you got the Red Sox. Nobody knows. I mean, they got Garrett Crochet.
Right.
Um, but they got and I love their center fielder. I love their,
Sure.
yeah,
But there you got Devers, but other than that, I mean Trevor's story is finished as far as
right.
I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And he never was what he was anyways.
Yeah.
You know.
He's like
Um,
he's like the tail end of Tulo's career, you know?
correct. And you put up numbers in Colorado that, while obviously they were good players, they weren't as good
Yeah.
as you thought they were.
Yeah, Tulo was on the Hall of Fame ballot for the first time this year, and he fell off right away. I think,
Right.
you know, his peak period had too much Colorado in it, had too
Of
much
course it did.
Mile High in it, and it didn't go on. His career didn't go on long enough after he left Rocky Mountain High.
Right. Right. That doesn't help.
How about this one? And we've discussed the others. How about the White Sox at 49.5 wins? Over under. I mean,
Well,
you could throw a load down on the over and just hope that they don't lose 112
if
games.
you've got the guts to bet that under, my hat goes off to you, man. If you've 49 wins and under, I mean, come on, they can't be that bad. Like you just they are in the major leagues. You've got you can't win 50 ball games.
Yeah, it's like betting an NFL favorite of 17 and a half and then also taking the under at 34 and a half. That is ballsy right there.
Well, what's the old line? You're going to win 60 and lose 60. That's the other 60 in between. Well,
Well,
that doesn't apply to the White
no,
Sox,
they got 49 and a half is there.
right?
The
Right.
next, the next lowest is the Rockies at 60 and a half. So that's the 60 they win.
I think I'm going to bet that just for we could go on a ride together. It's going to be the summer of the White Sox over 49 and a half. We can do a weekly recap on where they stand.
Right. Yeah.
I'm in. I'm in. I'm gonna place the wager when we're done here.
Perfect. Perfect. And the other one is the Nationals. I love the Nationals. I love their trajectory. They had some really good young players when we saw them play the Blue Jays. They got some good young players, and their over under is 69 and a half. So if they won 70 and lost 92, well, that
Yep,
might be
could
close.
have.
That might be
Yeah.
close.
Well, see if you have the intestinal fortitude to place that wager.
Yeah. The oh, just one more thing on the Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the news that came out earlier this week that nobody's allowed to speak directly to Pete Alonso? How do you interpret that?
Uh, that's very strange. Obviously, they're isolating themselves. Whether that's for other agents you know, trying to steal a client, I don't know, but it's usually like you mentioned, it's probably to avoid any undue influence from players and things along the, like I said, why don't you just change his number like Juan Soto? You
Yeah.
problem solved. Sorry, guys, I didn't know you texted me.
I haven't talked to any of my teammates since we lost the World Series. I'm out of there.
100%. I don't
But
know. I think
but
it's strange.
what
What's your take?
what you mentioned about poaching from other
Yeah,
agents. I remember when I was, well, everything I remember is when I was with the Expos because that was like 23 years of my life.
you can't
So
remember
gotta
yesterday
be,
now. Yeah,
yeah, I got to be forgiven. I mean, I never remember Debbie's birthday or anniversary, but that's another story.
right.
But I remember in the lobby of the Sheraton Society Hill in Philadelphia, coming down for breakfast, and there's an agent I won't name, but I was friends with him, and he's sitting in the lobby with his Expos client. He had one big client on the Expos, and there's like six Latino players on the roster. And this is the era when cell phones were quite rare. And
Right.
I remember I had for spring training a couple of times one of those big army cell phone
Yeah,
set, like to sit on the table and you screw
yeah.
in a rubber antenna.
I had one of those.
This is what this guy had, this agent, and he was allowing all six of the young Latino players to call their parents or call their friends at home in the Dominican on him, on his phone.
Yeah,
And clearly that was an attempt at poaching or signing guys, kids that didn't have agents yet. But there was an amount of poaching going on. And the same thing, we got to Pittsburgh one time, got to the hotel at 1 in the morning, and there was a small bus waiting for players who got off the big Expos bus onto the small bus. And I started to get on, and they said, no, no, no. It was going to a party organized by one of the agents. There was an off day the next day, so I'm not going to say that the agent was screwing
yeah,
win totals,
yeah.
but 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 this bus was there at 1 o'clock, so clearly it had been arranged through a player on the Expos, and they were going to a party, and I'm sure it wasn't a watch party for Pokemon or something. You know, it was like a legit early '80s party. So
Right.
their poaching is a time honored tradition
Well,
among.
but I mean, it's just the way we operate as people, right? I mean, other people poach other things than baseball players, right?
Yeah,
Hey,
true
look
that.
at me. I got more things than that guy.
Yeah,
Come
right.
on over here. I mean, that's just how it goes. So when you're trying to restrict it, that means you're a little bit concerned, I would think.
Yeah, and I think also that in addition to Alonso and Scott Boras not wanting other agents, it involves players. Players on other teams calling Alonso and saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, come here," because they're working on behalf of that team, and it's not as if Scott Boras doesn't know about it, that is not good on his behalf.
yeah.
Like he needs to be in charge of everything. We know that. Yeah.
That doesn't, at the end of the day on Alonso, I mean, doesn't it feel like a return to the Mets is inevitable? That's what both sides want. You know what I mean? Am I wrong there? Um,
Yeah. No, it's absolutely right. Yeah.
you just can't get there right now. So
Yeah.
it's all a lot of posturing and a lot of you know,
And a lot of times when a player, like what was it with Freddie Freeman when he went to the Dodgers and found out that the Braves had offered him
right,
a deal that he would have taken, but he didn't hear about it. You
right,
don't know how often stuff like that happens because the players union is almost representing the umbrella of high salary as opposed to individual players, even though they're supposed to be representing individual players.
right. And that's the one sport where that matters.
Yeah.
Where the union, it does matter that you continually raise the bar on salaries. It doesn't matter in other sports because there's a limited pool of money.
Yeah.
So
And
this
and,
one matters.
it's the best organized labor union in North America is the MLBPA.
And
And
that's why they don't have a
every
salary cap.
every spring when they go to a spring training camp and they visit all 30 camps, they bring checks, licensing checks, and they hand them in person to each player, and they look and go, "Wow, this unit
Yeah.
doing, look at this. I got this." And for most players, it's a significant amount that they could probably sign the back of, give to their wives, and keep them happy for spring training. But there is a method to everything that they do, and representing the overall escalation of salaries is more important than making an individual player happy.
Well, and there's a very, very good reason why they have the strongest union, as opposed to the other sports. It's because they were able to organize and fight because they have the longest careers, because
Yeah,
it's the least physical sport. Whereas you look at the NFL can't get there. The careers are too short, so guys can't give up salary
yeah,
to for the long-term vision. Baseball could do it. That's why we're in this position, because they could afford to strike and be locked out and survive it. So the strength of the union is unlike any other sport because those other sports just don't, the players can't survive it. They
yeah.
just can't. You can't do
And
it.
the fact of no matter what the NFL union says, teams are not going to guarantee every dollar that in every contract because of injuries and stuff. So it makes you wonder whether Kyler Murray made the right decision of foregoing his draft status with the Oakland A's as a shortstop to play quarterback for the Cardinals because that's going to be a shorter career. He hasn't really set the world on fire. He's been good, but and I think he left a lot of money on the table by choosing NFL over.
Well, all things being equal, you always choose baseball if it's about dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a much better chance to have a long and lengthy career in baseball than you do other sports. I mean, that's just a fact. You can't argue that. So,
Speaking of dollars, um, one thing that pisses me off, and I'll ask your opinion on it, is how media is now reporting that Santander, for example, his 5 year $92.5 million is not 5 years and $92.5 million. They go because of the deferrals, they go present value, and it's 60, whatever it is, 63 point something, which is ridiculous
of
because
course.
it's a 5 year $92.5 million contract. And the reason that the Dodgers downplayed Ohtani to 463 is just bookkeeping. It's to get it to lower the dollar value so that they don't pay as much in luxury tax. And that money is that money, whether it's handed out in 15 years or whether it's handed out today. It is that money. So 592.5. Don't let anybody tell you that it's worth 63 million because it is 92.5. That's my opinion. How do you see it?
No, I'm the same. That's the present day value. I understand how they're accounting for it, but it's not like they're still required to put that money somewhere. So it's not like you go, oh, we'll worry about it later and we'll figure it out. No, no, you still have to, spend the money, put it away in whatever escrow or whatever it is. It's not like it doesn't exist. You have to pay it out at some point. I understand the present value, and I understand the whole reason is to avoid paying bigger taxes on the CBT. You know what I mean? So I get the whole point of it, but you still got to spend it. You still got
Yeah.
to spend it. So
And the advantage to ownership, for instance, the Dodgers ownership, is that because they have to put Otani's $68 million that's deferred, they have to put it aside. They could invest that. Guggenheim Partners is the ownership. Like
right.
they don't have to pay the interest that they get off of Otani's money that they invested the year before they had to deposit it. So they're making that profit. That brings it down in terms of real dollars for them. but should not be incorporated into a fan's perception of how much this contract
Well, and
costs. And,
here's
and
the other
Steve
thing
Cohen's the
for
same thing. Steve Cohen's can invest any deferred money because that's his business. That's what he does. And not every ownership group is smart enough to maximize that portion of a deferment or to defer enough money to make it worthwhile.
Well, and I think for the local home team here, I think the thing that people need to understand is, well, you want to pretend the salary to Santander is only 13 million. It's not. They still have to spend the full amount of the money. The fact is Santander is just not getting it right now. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean they don't have to put the money out. They do. So that doesn't change the budgeting part of it. It just changes the calculation for the tax. You know what I mean? They still have to pay the full amount. 13 goes to Santander right now, and the other five has to be put somewhere else. They don't get to keep it. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
Rogers? So as far if you're saying, oh, they still have that 5 million to spend on another player. Oh, no, they don't. I mean, that's part of their budget. That's you
Yeah.
spent it. You know what I mean? It's just who's getting it right now is the question.
Yeah. So here's how it broke down. 5 years, 92.5, 13.5 million signing bonus with
Right.
5 million of that was deferred. Opt out after 3 years, but who would opt out of that deal? Jays can cancel the opt out. If he opts out, they can say, okay, we're going to solidify 2030. So that would be a 6th year.
That's right.
They could solidify that and cancel the opt out. So if you're a player, you're going to at least opt out. And then if they don't guarantee 2030, then you could say, I hope you didn't take that personally. Give me back give me back the rest that we were talking.
Like was that the Garrett Cole? Was it?
Yeah. Uh,
Forget about all that. Let's just sign.
so so 5 million is the buyout for that 2030 season. So that's part of the 92.5. Then there's the deferral on the bonus money. Then every year there's 10 million. Each of the 5 years there's $10 million deferred. So, it comes out to about 14.5 million per year average.
Right.
But really, it is what it is in terms of the total dollar 592.5. So we agree on that.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's what the player agreed on. He's getting his money.
Right. So absolutely, whether it's now or in the future, and we both talked about players that just blow through money on hand, like as soon as they get it, they spend it. We've seen countless examples of that, and that comes from the early years, especially when there was no really financial guidance from an agent. He was just there once the contract was signed, he sort of disappeared into the background and the player was left to his own devices, which a lot of times were self-destructive.
Right. Correct.
So let's just summarize before we wrap it up here. Let's just summarize what the Jays have accomplished as we speak on the 29th of January, I believe.
Is it correct? I think it is the 30th. But
the 30th. No,
enough.
Time flies. Yeah. So the Jays have signed 2 of the top 18 free agents according to MLB trade rumors.
Right.
Hoffman and Santander. There's 30 teams, and the Jays
17 and 18.
No, I think Santander was like single digit, 8 or 9, 7, 8,
Yeah.
somewhere in there, and Hoffman was like 18. But that was when they thought he might be a starting pitcher.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they've got 2 of the top 18, 30 teams, and they've got 2 of the top 20. That's pretty good. Free agent. So then they had earlier signed Jimmy Garcia. 2 trades with the Guardians that got them a Gold Glove second baseman, a guy to replace Trevor Richards in the middle of the bullpen, and the straw that stirs the drink. Or not.
That's right.
They picked up a Rule 5 injured right-hander in Angel Bastardo, and they've signed two roster players, just waivers or free agency, and seven signees who were invited to spring training. So clearly they still have work to do. But do you think that it's underrated what their winter has been? Do you think people were expecting too much, especially with every rumor out there, people throwing in the Blue Jays as strong contenders and then it not happening?
No, I don't. I don't think they've even come close to what they needed to do. And you're forgetting one major point, the first baseman. I mean, that was the biggest item on the list, never mind free agents. He's not signed. So no, I don't think they've improved the team. If they did, Griff, they wouldn't be scheduled over under wouldn't be 76.5. It's there for a reason. So as I said earlier, you can't go, oh, woe is me, Canada, this, that. You didn't get it done. You didn't get it done. I'm hoping there's more trades coming because I don't believe there's more free agents coming. So I think it's been a very poor offseason for them. They got Santander, I really like it. I like that they needed that. And Hoffman would have been 18th, like you said. He wouldn't be 18th now because of what, being a reliever and some of the damage that, shoulder issues that they see. So, no, I think being in on the podium just doesn't cut it when you're trying to get better. Not good enough. So there's still time, as I say, Griff.
Yeah, I wrote a column about it because I agree with, I mean, not on my list, but you pointed it out quickly, is the inability to extend Vlad Guerrero Jr., who's not only the best player on the team, but the most important player on the team. And
Right.
it would have been a lot easier going after free agents out there if they could see that this team was committed to winning by having their best player under contract for the next 14, 15 years. That would have made it much easier to go after and convince Santander. That would have made it much easier to convince some of the free agent pitchers who don't want to sign on and then end up with a rebuilding team in 26 and beyond. Um, Here's my question to you, and I wrote a column about it for griffthepitch.com, which has all of my columns for the last 2 years and all of my conversations and all of our exit philosophies. And the conversation, I must say, with Terry Francona was outstanding. Here's a guy who opened up about a lot of things that you didn't see in his press conference when he took the Reds job, but it was great. He's
Well, and that's what Griff's the pitch brings you, man. Those extra, no, the more natural conversation, a little deeper. Any of the ones you've done, the interviewee is a lot more relaxed, and you obviously have a relationship with them. So kudos to you because those those are a lot of fun to listen to. It's not your standard stuff you get out in the marketplace. So I encourage everyone to go listen to those.
Thanks, Mal. So back to the question that I'm going to ask you before we wrap this up is, do you believe that even with missing the boat in signing Vlad the last two seasons, do you believe that at this point in time, if it could be constructed properly, that Mark Shapiro could go to Rogers ownership and present a case if he really wanted, because on griffstopitch.com, I blame him for not having Vlad sign. Do you believe that he could go if he really wanted to explain about deferrals, about this, about that, about this guy needs to be the third highest paid player? And I know that you don't believe that Vlad would sign, but if he gets all of those concessions and is
Right.
third highest paid player, realistically, he knows he's not the third best player. But if that was presented to him, but do you believe that it could be done still?
Well, that's the only way, I think, right? So you mean, can they go to Edward and go to Rogers and get him treated like Otani and Soto?
Well, it's not even close in terms of total dollars. I mean, we throw 100
Or you
million.
mean like a separate budget?
Yeah. Well, no, because
Um,
you can fit it in with the deferrals and sort of make it
you
same.
can do it. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously you can't do it in salary this year.
Right.
You're gonna
Oh,
and it, and
you
it
would leave the salary the same and the
and
extension kick in
yeah.
the details in 20.
Yeah, of course I think they have to do that.
Yeah.
That's the one thing you have to do. You have to go. I mean, honestly, Rogers doesn't care. Like if you can fit it into the budget, assuming the budget's going to continuously be where it is or slightly more. Rogers has been excellent. Mark's done a hell of a job getting Rogers to spend money.
Yes.
A hell of a job. So if you're convinced that that's going to continue, which I don't see why it couldn't, there's a lot of room to fit Vladdy in. Like you said, the extension kicks in next year. You got contracts coming off the books. I mean, like I said, does Vladdy like that? I'm not so sure. But if you, there's no reason why you just can't do that deal. Like you can manage that as we go further because you can fit in the salary.
Yeah.
It can be done.
For me, the wild card here is the stadium renovations and how we've spoken before that part of Mark Shapiro's selling point was the PDC and the stadium renovations will attract players and that it will help to the team to remain competitive for years and years to come.
Which it
To me,
hasn't.
to me, the stadium renovations are hanging over Shapiro's head like the sword of Damocles. And at any moment, if it lets loose, he's done, you know? And the Damocles was able to live with it and responded to it the way that we're hoping that Blue Jays fans are hoping Shapiro responds to the challenge of signing Vlad Guerrero Jr. Into the future. It's something that needs to be done. Otherwise, you'll be able to fire a cannon through that
If
Rogers
Mark
Center.
Shapiro's worried about his legacy, and which he very much is, this is the moment. So you can leave here having left Vladdy fully signed and this organization at least with the idea that there's something to look forward to, or it's not going to be good. It's not going to end well. He's
Yeah.
going to have to move on to the, you know, to college, to the sports commissioner.
Commissioner of the NCAA. I like that job
Right. I'm sure he'd be
because
fine.
it's a pro league right now. I mean,
Yeah.
you got guys making millions of dollars for quarterbacking at Ball State or something, you know?
Yeah. His legacy won't be defined about the player development complex and how good Rogers Center is if it, like you said, you can shoot a cannon through it. It's about the baseball team.
Yeah.
That's what
Agreed.
it's about. This is the moment.
On that note, and having already plugged all of my online stuff, it's time to wrap up this week.
Yeah.
And next week, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, and we'll have all of the ducks in order, in line, and we'll be able to use our expertise, and both of us being above 500 for the season against
Yeah. Can't go below. That's right.
God. Anyway, I appreciate it, Mal, and this was another good episode for us, and we covered everything we need to, and hopefully by next week the Jays will have done something else in terms of improving the roster. Otherwise,
Alonso, prove me wrong.
5, as Mal says, 76.5 wins looks bang on.
Right.
We'll talk about that and more next week. And we appreciate everyone for joining us. And thanks again, Mal, for co-hosting.
Yeah. Thank you.